Hey there, MRA, my Real Africanist. This is Marie Ya Jouf, your Real Africanist, and welcome to my channel. If you have been here before, I thank you for coming back, and if this is your first time here, I really appreciate you watching. On this channel, I talk about African history, the field of African studies, and of course, current African affairs. So today, I would like to talk about the topic of Cleopatra, right? Cleopatra the 7th. This topic has been making its rounds in the social media circuit, right? For the last couple of weeks. I did a video about not Cleopatra per se, but Egypt, maybe a couple months ago when I first started on social media. And I said that I was not going to talk about Egypt anymore because that is a subject that most people have kind of made up their minds about what they believe about Egypt, right? It's kind of a controversial topic, and although I do not shy away from controversy, on some things or on some topics, it seems as if you're just kind of spinning your wheels, right? And that's kind of how I feel about the topic of Egypt, right? I think it's a very fascinating subject, and I think it's a very interesting topic. However, I do believe that there's only so much that I can add to the conversation, right? I really respect those like our brother Anthony Browder, the team over at Happy, right? Brother Michael Imhotep. I really respect them, and I respect the work that they are doing and that they continue to do on the subject of Kemet or Egypt, right? So, and I think that they do a better job, right? They can do a better job than me because they that is their area of focus. However, I wanted to add my perspective to the conversation on Cleopatra. Okay, now the controversy surrounding Cleopatra has to do with the Netflix movie that is due to come out next week, right? So from what I understand, there was a trailer released to the movie. Right now, I didn't see the trailer when it was released, but I have watched it since, right? And so people are upset, mostly people of Egyptian descent, these Egyptian social influencers and other nationalities and ethnic groups as well, right? They are upset because Cleopatra is portrayed as a woman of color in the trailer and subsequently in the movie, right? And so there's been this huge pushback against that portrayal. But not only has there been a pushback by those on social media, there has also been a suit that has actually been filed against Netflix, and I'm taking the producers of the movie as well, of which Jada Pinkett Smith is one of the executive producers, right? Now, I'm not on here to debate about what race Cleopatra was, right? Because they really don't know, right? The evidence is not conclusive on that. So we really don't know what race Cleopatra was, right? Her father is supposed to be Ptolemy the 12th, right? He's supposed to have descended from Ptolemaic dynasty. And then they don't know who her mother is at all. And they have never found the body of Cleopatra, right? And so they really don't know who she is, and they really don't know what race she is, right? According to the documented narratives, right, the Ptolemaic dynasty was a Greek dynasty. And as a matter of fact, it was the last the last dynasty, Egyptian dynasty, before the Romans took over, right? So that's what we do know. And that's what we know. And what we know about Cleopatra is that she was the last ruler of Egypt before its demise, right? However, again, they don't know what color Queen Cleopatra was, right? And so I had been under the impression that it really didn't make much of a difference, because I didn't see what she had done that was so phenomenal that, that it would have made a difference anyway, because the heydays, the glory days of Kemet, which was the name of ancient Africa or ancient Egypt, right, before the Greeks gave it the name Egypt, right, because Egypt is a Greek name, so don't get it twisted, right? But the name of the African civilization was Kemet, right, meaning the lands of the blacks, right? Now, people, a lot of scholars, European scholars, Mediterranean scholars, and and the others, they want to say, and not just scholars, but anthropologists and archaeologists, all of those that deal with this kind of stuff. They want to say that the name Kemet, yes, it meant land of the blacks, but they try to say that it means land of the black soil, or something, that the people of Kemet was calling it that because of the soil. But we know that that's just nonsense, because there are other names within the African lexicon of which Africans call themselves, which also means land of the blacks, right? So African people had no problem calling themselves black people, right? They had no problem with that. I know a lot of us today, a lot of members of the African American community and maybe other African communities, they don't like the term black because they say that it connects you to no land mass or anything like that. But I have no problem with the word myself. Actually, I'm very proud of being called black. I like being called black. Yeah, so anyway, so there's this big controversy, right, about Cleopatra, okay? But, and again, like I said, I'm not here to argue that, but what I am here to talk about is the fact that this lawyer has the audacity to sue over this representation of Cleopatra, right? Some nerves, especially when these different historians and scholars and writers have been trying to write people of African descent, African people, out of history for, I don't know, eons, right? And we have never sued them, right? But maybe we should. But they have the audacity to file suit about this, right? Saying that that the producers of the movie, but we as African people, right? I'm going to include us in this whole conversation as well, that are trying to somehow steal their identity and stake claim to a history that was not African. And that is not the truth. It has been proven over and over again that ancient Egyptian history was actually ancient African history. Egypt is on the African continent. It always has been, and I guess it always will be, right? And we know that the kings and queens from up south, which in American terms, we might say down south, but in ancient Kemet, they say up south. And we're talking about the Nubians and the Sudanese, and I think it's the Numer or something to that extent. But other groups from up south, right? They are the progenitors of ancient Kemetic history, right? They were the members of the royal families, right? This has been proven by the exceptional scholar and scientist Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop from Senegal, as well as his colleague Dr. Theophile Obenga, right? They both have proven this unequivocally, right? Through this melanin test. Well, one way through the melanin test that Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop created, which was a test to test the amount of melanin in the body of the royal mummies, right? And he proved that because of the amount of melanin that was in the bodies of the royal mummies, that they were of African descent, and they could not have been of European descent, because the amount of melanin that was found in those bodies were not found in the bodies of people of European descent. They don't have that melanin, right? And then you had him also, him as well as Dr. Theophile Obenga also proven that the language, right, in West Africa was intricately connected to the language that was spoken or written in Kemet, right? Now, I may have some of the details sort of twisted, but basically that's the foundational principle of what I'm trying to express, right? So anyway, there are these two busts, right, of Cleopatra. Now, the one bust, supposedly, I think it's still in Germany, but it is referred to as the Berlin bust of Cleopatra, and that is this white marble bust, right? And that's the bust that we always see all across social media and in the books and you know, in the public eye, that is supposed to be an accurate representation of Cleopatra the 7th, right? Now, again, it's the white marble bust with this kind of curly hair, this thing around her head, you know, that supposedly depicts what the people of the Ptolemaic dynasty wore at the time of their rule in ancient Egypt, right? But when I was doing some research on this topic, because like I said, it's been all over the news and all on social media, there's been such a big deal made out of it, right? So I started doing some more research on Cleopatra and the topic, right? And so I came across another bust, right? On the Royal Ontario Museum website, right, referred to as ROM, okay? And this bust is remarkably different from the bust that was on the website, that is housed in the museum in Germany, right? That is referred to as the Berlin bust, which was supposedly found in Italy somewhere, right in southern Italy, okay, years later, right? And I won't go into all of this about this finding of these different busts and supposedly these discoveries that are supposed to have been made during these during the 1900s, right? Because if you do a lot of research, you will find out that a lot of these so-called discoveries were falsified, right? And they were fake, basically. But anyway, I want to show you the two different Cleopatra busts that are out there, right? And then I want you to tell me what you think, right? So I'm going to show you the Berlin bust. I'm going to show you the bust from the Ontario Museum in Canada. And I'm going to show you a little short video. I mean, it lasts about 1 or 2 minutes that talks about this bust that was found in, that resides in Ontario, Canada, right, in the museum. And then I'll be right back to talk a little more about that and bring it into the video. Okay, I'll see you in a minute. This is the bust that was supposedly found in Italy, the one that is supposed to accurately depict Cleopatra and always shown in the public. And this is the bust that is in the Rom Museum that is rarely ever seen in public. A major difference, right? And here is the video pertaining to that bust found in the Rom Museum.
Hello, I'm Roberta Shaw from the Royal Ontario Museum, and I'm here in Egypt to tell you the story of the Rom's bust of Cleopatra. Here I am standing on the site of the ancient lighthouse of Alexandria in Egypt. Behind me, across the water, was where Cleopatra's palace complex was situated. It is now underwater, and it is from this area that the Rom statue of Cleopatra very likely originated. The Rom statue of Cleopatra was purchased by the Rom's founder, C.T. Corelli, while he was working in Egypt almost 100 years ago. It is most likely that it came from the Great Palace area, which is situated behind me on the other side of this harbor. The statue probably stood outside some important municipal building, perhaps a temple, perhaps even the famous Alexandrian Library. Recent research has suggested that the Rom statue of Cleopatra forms a part of a pair. Our Cleopatra is dressed as an Egyptian queen, while the sister statue that resides here in Alexandria is dressed as a goddess. Another interesting feature of this statue is the back pillar, which continues up the back and into the crown. There are only 2 other statues with this particular feature, and both of those have been identified as Cleopatra. What we have with the Rom statue, then, is a very early Cleopatra. The facial features are an idealized version of a very young queen, beginning to assert her power over the whole country of Egypt. So, after 100 years, we are able to say that the Rom possesses a statue of the great Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt.
Okay, MRA, my fam. So I am back, right? So what do you think about those images and the video that I showed you, right? So for me, again, the marble video, as far as I'm concerned, I've seen that video before, and it's nothing striking or astonishing, but they claim that it is the depiction of Cleopatra. Now, again, there's no way to really refute that. The claim is that it looks like the coins that have also been found that feature Cleopatra's face, right? Now, that's not a strong basis to or a strong foundation to make that claim, right? Because it's easy to just to create a bust that looks like the picture on the coin. I mean, that's something that can be done, I'm quite sure, easily, and I'm quite sure it's something that they would do because again, those black scholars and historians and scientists like Sheikh Anta Diop have told us the stories of how these different European scientists and historians and these people are willing, and what length they are willing to go to falsify information, right? To write black people of African descent out of the historical narrative of Kemet, right? Of Egypt. But and so again, like I said, there's no proof of that, right? However, this other bust that is found in the Canadian museum is ironic. From the video, the curator is telling us that there was also another bust that was supposed to be the pair to this bust that was actually found in Egypt itself, right? And so that narrative seems to have more of a more truth to it, right? Or more of a foundational principle that would make you subscribe more to that story or that depiction of Cleopatra than the other. Now, I'm not saying that is an accurate depiction of Cleopatra either, because again, we just do not know. We don't have enough evidence to say it for certain. However, that means that again, that the evidence is not conclusive, so no one should be getting upset about how Cleopatra is portrayed. And the woman that is portraying, I mean, portraying Cleopatra in the movie, I mean, she's a fair-skinned woman of color, right? Which is probably more accurate, right? Maybe a more accurate portrayal, and I'm not even sure of that, right? I mean, we never know, so I don't want to really comment on that, because that other bust that's still featured at the ROM Museum, right? It's still featured there. That bust clearly does not look like a woman of Greek descent, not at all, right? That bust definitely looks like a woman of African descent. So we just really don't know. However, I just wanted to push back again on this whole idea that somehow we are trying to steal the history and the culture of ancient Egyptians. And like I said, that is just the furthest thing from the truth. The Egyptians didn't even come, the Greeks did not even come to Egypt until about 330 something BC, right? And so there had been thousands of years of ancient Kemetic, ancient African history before Greeks ever stepped a foot on African soil, right? And again, all of these terms that we know, pyramid, pharaoh, Egypt, all of those are Greek terms, right? Those those Egyptian, what I'm trying to say, those Egyptian identifying cultural markers were, they had African names, and they were in place long before Greek ever stepped foot on the African soil. So they can say what they want, but the history is there, right? And unless they can challenge it, really challenge it, and provide evidence to the contrary, then we are going with what is there, right? And so since they want to push back and say that we are trying to steal their identity, then we have a right and we have a duty to continue to push back and say that, no, you are trying to take our identity. Like I said, we should be the one that's suing all the time that they have distorted our history, that they have just blatantly lied about our history, that they have just falsified our history, right? For how many years have we as African American people been told that we had no history, right? That we never did anything, that we never contributed anything to the world? How long did they talk about the ancient Egyptian people being Greek descent, or portraying these people as light-skinned people, or I would say people from the European or Mediterranean world, before Sheikh Anta Diop came in with this melanin test and proved unequivocally that these people were people of African descent. So they were falsifying and distorting and basically putting out biased information way back then. So again, it's not like we spend our time trying to convince people that this is our history, but we have a right to push back as well. And again, this lawyer, right, he said that he's suing because the producers are trying to push this Afrocentric not theology, but philosophy, right, or ideology. And again, if you have watched my channel, then you know that word, I despise that word. And the reason why I despise the word Afrocentric, right, not because some people of African descent, they use it themselves, but it's because that in the field that I'm in the field of African history and African studies, right, or in the field of history, period, they use those words, right? People, European authors and scholars and researchers, they use that word Afrocentrism to belittle the work of African scholars and to relegate their work and their invalidate their work, right? And to kind of relegate it to a lower status than their own. Like, it's not really bona fide or trustworthy research, right? That it's Afrocentric, right? It's these black scholars trying to pass off pseudo history, right? And basically pseudo history mean really fake, right? That is really take a lot of research and a lot of maneuvering to really get this research to be legitimate. And like I said, I don't like it, and I don't like it because our scholars have sacrificed so much. They have given of their time, their life, right, to recover the African narrative, right, and to try to go through all of these narratives that, again, have been distorted, have been rewritten, and just have written African people out of the narrative of world history, right? And we have some brilliant scholars that have sacrificed so much, some that have even gone blind, right? Like Dr. Dr. Chancellor Williams, like Dr. John Henry Clark, they lost their sight. And I'm quite sure a big part of them losing their sight was because of this, trying to study, trying to work, right? It takes a lot of energy out of you, and your eyes are strained a lot reading and researching, right? But then we have Dr. Asa Hilliard, we have Dr. John G. Jackson, we have George G.M. James, like I said, our brother Anthony Browder, who is still doing the work. We have Dr. Manu Ampim, right, who also is doing the work. We have so many amazing scholars that have gone on, and some that still remain, that have committed their lives to, studying ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt. And I'm sorry, I did not mean to leave out Dr. Ben Jochannan, right? He was one of the best, right? He spent years of his life going back and forward to Kemet, right? And taking study groups so that they can see for themselves, right? And there's so many more. I mean, I'm remiss if I miss some of them, but there are so many more out there. Again, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, Renoko Rashidi. I mean, they're just really not coming to me right now. But so many of them. And we cannot allow their reputation to be damaged or to be what's the word, that defamed, right, by these people who want to claim that they did not know what they were talking about, because they definitely knew what they were talking about, right? And they sacrificed a lot. They had to pay a lot for their own research. They paid with their own money and their own time, because a lot of these universities won't fund their research, right? And that's bold within itself. How are other people who are not of African descent considered authorities over our history, right? They write our history. First of all, they subjugate us, enslave us, colonize us, oppressed us, right? And then they take our story and write it and then sell it back to us, right? So not only did these institutions, I mean all of these educational institutions like Harvard and Yale and all the ones that are in Europe, right? And in the UK and all the other countries in Europe, where you will find all of our cultural artifacts. That's another thing. If you really go deep, right? All of our cultural artifacts are in these museums all around the world. It's not just the Benin bronzes that we always hear about. It's not just the diamond in the crown of Queen Elizabeth that we normally hear about. I mean, everywhere, from every corner of the African continent, all of our cultural artifacts and all of our cultural identifying artwork is in these museums all over the world. And we really need to have those back, because most of them were not, most if not all of them, I'm going to say, were not voluntarily given to these people to house in these museums. Why would they do that, right? Our artifacts and our cultural creations really were very central and very important to the organization of our culture and our societies, right? You can find our narratives written on our cloths, right? These different stamps and motifs that you find on African textiles that were hand woven, right? Or even those that were printed, right? You will find motifs, and all of these things tell our story. So that's why we as African people don't know our story. Even people on the continent don't know their own story, because all of their cultural artifacts and all of their stories are in these museums all around the world. And then these museum curators and owners, they want to try to convince us that museums don't make money, right? I heard that a lot when we were talking about, when there was this campaign and this ongoing campaign to recover all of these artistic artifacts. Museums really don't make no money. That's bull crap. If they didn't make no money, they would not have the artifact, because believe me, they do nothing if it does not make money, right? And some of these artifacts, maybe the museums don't make money, but the artifacts, the cultural creations are worth money. Like in Ghana, some of these artifacts were made of gold. You gonna tell me that big diamond sitting up in the top of that crown, is not worth something? All of this bronze, and all of these intricate, like I say, cloths that were hand woven, this stuff is worth a lot of money. All of these statues, you should just see them everywhere. Every institution in this country and in Europe has benefited off the back of African people in one way or the other. So no, it's not a big deal, right? It's no big deal what race Queen Cleopatra was. We had many African queens, right? And we don't even know them all, because again, the history is always buried and always suppressed, and it takes money, right, to be able to fund these architectural digs, right? We have, again, Brother Tony Browder, who is doing the work in Egypt now. He is the first African American and probably the only that has funded his own agricultural dig, right? Excavation, basically. Right? So we won't even begin to talk about all of the lies and distortions that have been done by these anthropologists and archaeologists and all of these other different scientists, right? We won't even talk about that, because I think I talked about it before. This guy, what's his name? I can't think of his name, who did the excavation in Nubia, right? And all of the artifacts, he did it for the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, Harvard, the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, and this guy, wow, I can't believe I can't think of his name right off. But just look it up, Boston Museum of Fine Arts and Harvard, and these excavations that were done. I think it starts with the G. Anyway, I can't think of his name right now, right? However, and talk about his racist perspectives towards African people, and how all of these artifacts, right, that he had taken out of the country, and that they have in the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, that have never been seen, right? And these are traveling artifacts to different museums all around the country. And you think that these people are not making money off of this? They're not making money off of this. Is bull crap, right? And again, that's why we don't know about our history. And I know I'm rambling, but it's bigger than this Cleopatra thing. It's a bigger issue than that, right? But the way that we have been vilified and portrayed, and like I say, subjugated and discriminated against us, and especially by Egyptians. Look at what has been done to the Nubian people, right? Look at what's happening in Sudan today, right? This still stems from when these Egyptians were ruling over areas of Sudan. You still have these Arab Egyptians, and I won't just relegate them to just being Arab. Who knows, right? You still have all of this stuff happening. So if anybody should be suing somebody, it should be us. It should be us. All the destruction and all of the distortion and exploitation that has taken place against our people. I was watching a video just the other day, and Dr. Oba T'Shaka, he was interviewing Dr. Manu Ampim, right? And they were talking about this whole thing about ancient Kemetic history. And so Dr. Ampim, he's doing primary research, right? Which means that he's on the ground. He's doing field research. And he's doing that in Sudan, right? And so he was talking to members of the Dinka tribe from Sudan. And so he was able to get an audience from some of the higher up chiefs in the Sudan tribe. And they talked about, their history and how they have been written out of the history of ancient Egypt or ancient Kemet, right? And they showed him artifacts and things that were unique to their culture, but they were in correlation to objects that Dr. Ampim had photographed and that were on the walls and in Kemet, right? And like I said, I'm going to leave that link, and you can go over there and listen to him tell the story better, because I'm giving you bits and pieces and I may not be getting it all correct. But basically, some of the information that Dr. Ampim had, they didn't even have knowledge of. They talked about these cultural scarrings, right? Or these cultural identifiers, right? What some people refer to as scarification, right? And Dr. Ampim said not to refer to them as that because it has kind of a negative connotation. But these members of the Dinka tribe were saying that they believe, well, a couple members said that they believed that this came from actually the British, and it was a way of identifying which members belong to which tribe, and which Dr. Ampim thought was interesting. But then he showed them images and pictures of that he had photographed from the walls of Kemet, of ancient Kemet, where people on these walls had these same cultural identifiers, right? Identical, and some of the artifacts as well, like I just mentioned. And so even the Dinka people were surprised that connection was there, right? And so that is what happens sometimes on the African continent, and I'm going to do another video on that, right? Because sometimes we as African American people, we get some pushback and sometimes criticized because some of our African family feel like we're trying to tell their story, and we don't really know the real history of Africa, and they know it better because they are on the continent. And yes, granted, you all have, some of our African family members have more a connection to the stories and the culture, right? So yes, that does give them an insight that we don't have. But we as African Americans have done the research, we have done the work, and we don't just repeat and regurgitate some of this information, which I have found was also just information that has been left behind by these colonial invaders, these colonial, ex-colonial powers, right? Some of these different I can't think of the word, but some of this different information that was left in the archives, the archives were not done by Africans. They were done by Europeans that left the information there. And so we as African people that's on the continent, you're still taking their information as authority over your story. And we have to stop that. So again, like I said, I'm going to elaborate on that on another video, because I've been on here long and I know I got to go, right? Because I want you all to, again, just do some more research if you are interested in ancient Kemet, but that's a part of our history that no, we're not going to allow them to hijack. We're not going to allow them to take away from us, right? Because they say, well, even if that was an African, history, right? It has nothing to do with the African diasporas or Africans in other parts of the world. And we know now that that's not true, right? There's research being done that shows the connection again to West Africa, to Ghana, right? And to Senegal and to other West African communities and all over the continent, the Congo, the Sudan, down in South Africa with the beginning with the Twa, all of that. The whole continent, we're always migrating, immigrating, moving across the continent back and forth. So this whole strategic plan to label us north, south, east, and west, right? Africa, that's nothing but a political agenda, right? To try to say that, some parts of Africa were, more superior than other parts. I mean, it's the same old game over and over and over again, right? But you can't buy into it. And those of us who are interested in history, we have to do what we can to push back, and we have to encourage our young people to go into history, to go into these sciences, like archaeology and paleontology and anthropology and all of this. That is very important to retaining our history, right? And so anytime you have some type of influence over young people, try to encourage them to do so, right? Because most of the time, a lot of our young people are not thinking in that way, right? Not thinking about becoming historians or archaeologists or anthropologists, all of those type of fields, okay? So again, I'm going to get off of here. And if I was a lawyer, I'd be bringing suit against the man that bought the suit. Anyway, but I am Marie Ya Jouf, the Real Africanist, and you can catch me here on YouTube, or you can also catch me at my blog at therealafricanist.com. Again, I have to admit that I've been kind of slacking on the blog, y'all. So I was just on it the other day, and it popped up Happy Women's History Month. So that was a couple months ago, but it's still some very interesting things on there, some good pictures, some good narratives, right? So if you haven't visited, go over and visit it at therealafricanist.com. Okay, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, right? Share, please share, so we can get the subscription numbers up, right? And also don't forget to hit the notification button so you can be one of the first to be notified when I put another video up, right? So again, I will see you next time. Peace. Fight the power. Also, remember, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And also remember to always go deeper, because there is always more to the story, especially when it comes to the African story. I will see you later, and peace.